Welcome, welcome, all five of you. Just going to be patient and preserve my voice until more people enter the chat. Welcome. Hope everybody's evening is going well. Happy Thursday to all. You guys look beautiful tonight, if I might add. I'm not eating anything on a microphone, Ian. Please stop texting me this nonsense. What type of beginner do you think I am to eat on a microphone? That's paper that you hear. And if it's bothering you, then just say that. Hope everyone is well. Welcome all 44, y'all. We're just going to be patient. Wait a little second here. If the audio is fine, give a thumbs up. But we are going to have what I think will be a really good talk with Neil deGrasse Tyson tonight. This is our second time speaking with Neil. First time. Hey.
Hey, dude.
Hey, Neil. How you doing, man?
Is this the right time and the right place?
The right place and the right time. I was just in the middle of giving like a beautiful monologue about our first time speaking and how much I enjoyed that conversation.
No, the first time we didn't speak, and no one, and you told me that no one believed you.
Oh man, I look so bad in the streets. But yeah,
that was funny. It's all my fault. Let me just tell all your people it was my fault. But
no. We on to the next game. Water under the bridge. But you throughout this whole series, man, that talk that we had was just one of my favorite. It's one of my favorite talks. It was super interesting, and it left me with some things.
Well, I got good. The universe makes good material. So
yeah.
Don't credit me. Credit the universe for what happened there.
Has anything changed in the universe since the last time we spoke that I need to be aware of?
Yeah. Well, so there's what the universe does, and there's what we do in response to what the universe is and what it does. And since then, NASA launched a mission to deflect an asteroid. The first time ever, ever. It's called the DART mission, the Double Asteroid Redirect Test. And it's a test of concept, a test of kinematics, a test of the physics of what we would do if an asteroid were headed our way and we need to do something about it. And so there's the Bruce Willis solution, right? Which is, or just the American solution, blow the sucker out of the sky. And as I've said, we're really good at blowing stuff up and less good at knowing where the pieces go afterwards. So the kindler, gentler, and in fact, the more sensible, frankly, approach here is to deflect the asteroid. And that's what we're going to do. There's a binary asteroid. There's an asteroid and it has a little moonlet. We're going to take a spacecraft and slam it into the moonlet and then monitor what the moonlet does after we collide with it to see how much its orbit has changed. Did we break apart the moonlet, but not on purpose because we just want to give it a nudge? And so this is the very first steps in saving the species. That's what I think about it.
But are there, and that was great, but are there projections as to where these pieces would go if breakage were to occur?
So this asteroid is one of a class of asteroids called near-Earth objects. And all the near-Earth objects, they do what it sounds like they do. Other than the asteroid belt, which all hang out between Mars and Jupiter, the near-Earth objects are wayward asteroids whose orbits either bring them near Earth's orbit or actually cross our orbit. And the collection of them represent risks to life on Earth going forward. And so we just want to not only get a good inventory of them, but be in a position to do something about it if we find out. So this one, if we happen to accidentally break the thing in two, we don't think that'll happen, but just in case that happens, we don't expect that to all of a sudden start headed towards Earth. That's what you're worried about. Yeah. NASA kills the civilization. No. It's at a safe distance for this experiment to, even if it fails, it'll still succeed. in giving us data for what happens when you do this.
Awesome. I'd also like to point out to you, Neil, because last time you made me feel a little bad that I was bringing up all the morbid topics. Like you really put that right in front of me. So I just want to point out that you have entered the end of humanity. You started that. And is it too soon to have that talk anyway? Is it too soon for people to really concern themselves with, like, because humans are selfish, right? So
Well,
we really gonna do.
So I don't know. I don't remember if we talked about this last time, but did I mention that if you go back to the year 1900 and ask people what do they fear the most, they would say things like population explosion, tuberculosis.
But wait, explain to me why somebody back then would say population explosion.
Well, they were worried. They saw the population grow, and there was still this sort of Thomas Malthusian expectation that our food supply is not growing at the rate that our population is. And there will come a day where we outstrip the food supply and there'll be mass famine. What they didn't know, well, I'll get to that in a minute. So you list everybody's concerns in the year 1900. None of them are in the top of our list in the year 2000, or certainly not 2020. So what's interesting to contemplate, we have other lists, okay? Yeah, yes, I worry about an asteroid strike. I worry about climate change.
What is that? I don't know what an asteroid strike is. Oh, striking us.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. Not that they go on strike, but
just trying to be clear.
Yeah. Sorry.
You know a lot of terms that I don't know, so I'm just going to ask.
Yeah, there's a strong asteroid union, right? Don't mess with them. So just think to yourself, if today's list has nothing on it that everybody was worried about in the year 1900, then what will we discover about our world in the next 100 years that would make the top of that list that we don't even know pose a threat today? This is what I wonder about. This is how I think about it. Now, some of those threats we solved. So the population outstripping the food supply, we solved that. You know how we solved it? We applied science to farming. That's what we did. And today we produce more food on less land with fewer farmers than ever before. You know, what if you go back to the era of the founding fathers, what percentage of people were farmers or had something to do with it? Was more than half in the day. And now, you know, many of us, particularly if you live in a city, you've never even met a farmer your entire life, much less have that be the majority occupation. So we figured out a way to produce food. And so anyone who's starving in the world today, it's not because the world does not have enough food. And by all measures, we will top out at most 10 billion people in the world. And we can easily produce enough food for 10 billion people. We're at 8 billion right now. So, but we will level off at 10 billion. It's not going to, there's no evidence that it's going to get higher than that. And so that's one of the problems we solved. So that's great. Science solves a problem, solves one of those big problems. Science can solve the asteroid deflection problem. So maybe in 80 years, in the year 2100, the risk of asteroids rendering us extinct the way they did to the dinosaurs would be a long, quaint, old-fashioned concern that people had way back at the beginning of the 21st century.
This is where I was really at odds with something you said to me in our last talk. I'll be honest with you. You said, I've been wrestling with this. You said for all of the information that you have, when it comes to death, you're left with nothing that would lead you to think that it's anything different from before birth.
Yeah, I don't think I gave complicated arguments in
No,
support
you
of
killed
that.
it, Neil. No, listen. You're that dude. So you are well explained. But I'm an art guy.
And you don't want that to be true. That's what you're telling me.
I kind of live in the unexplained. Now, my issue with that is, what does that do for the word soul? And if I subscribe to what you're saying, then that means I don't subscribe to soul at all.
Yeah, so that's the thing, right? So let's go back for a minute. What was that movie? What was it called? 21 Grams or something? So it was a movie that purported to measure the weight of the body right after you died compared to the weight before it, and you're 21 grams lighter. And so they said, well, that must be the weight of the soul. By the way, holding aside that that's just BS, that you could first, who's sitting there waiting for the body to die? By the way, do you know how much 21 grams is? Do you have any idea? It's 2/3 of an ounce. Right?
I do know what 21 grams is, unfortunately.
2/3 of an ounce. And so you realize when you die, your sphincters open up and all the liquid that's in your bladder and it all just spills out. There's all kinds of stuff that happens when you die. Okay? And so, but anyhow, what I want to get at is when we first discovered X-rays, this is back near the turn of the last century. In fact, the discovery of X-rays won the first Nobel Prize in physics to Wilhelm Röntgen. And he, right when that was discovered, people said, let's X-ray people while they're dying to see if we can see the soul leave the body. So it's a perfectly legitimate, experimental test. I don't have a problem with that. So they did it, but it was inconclusive. They couldn't find any evidence of it. Okay. But here's what's interesting to me. If the soul is what people say it is, you shouldn't be able to see it with X-rays. It shouldn't have a mass, right? It shouldn't have any of these things if it's really some spirit entity that's in you when you're alive and not in you when you're dead. So so I don't see why people feel the need to get physics to verify it, because there's a whole lot of other stuff physics says that isn't true, and you're just ignoring that, right? So why should all of a sudden the physics matter to you, right? If you believe things based on traditions or belief system or historical holy texts,
you really boxing me out, Neil.
No, I'm saying, then what do you care about the science?
Oh, come on, Neil.
What do you care?
You're boxing me out.
No, how?
Look at all those different boxes you just threw. If you believe in all that traditional nonsense.
No, I know. I didn't call it nonsense. I just said that if you're going to say you have weighed a body and it's 21 grams lighter, and you're not accounting for the pee that just came out into the clothing and anything else that just happened. I mean.
Okay, let me throw this at you. Then what would you say to, do you believe in readers, healers, mediums?
Okay, you mean especially those who declare that they have access to the other side and communicate with the dead. So here's an example. So I published a book a couple of years ago called Letters from an Astrophysicist. And unbeknownst to many, my email address was actually publicly available, and I sustained conversations, email exchanges with people over 3 decades who wrote to me asking me all kinds of questions related to their life's journey, existential angst. One of them was terminally ill. 3 of them were in prison. Others have sort of strong religious traditions, and they're trying to reconcile the meaning in their life. In that book is a letter from someone who said, my father died. I got called into the funeral home. And I walked in, and he's on the slab. She had to identify the body. She identifies him. And then proceeded to have a conversation with him. A whole conversation.
Okay.
And she knew it was him because he used the nicknames for her and little pet phrases it was him. The man is dead on the slab, and she wrote to me and said, what do I think happened? Okay. So, oh, by the way, she said, well, how are you? How do you feel? So those were the questions in the conversation. I said, okay, either you had an acoustic hallucination, because all of your senses can hallucinate in their own way. There's not just a visual hallucination. That's the most common we'll talk about and think about, but you can have an acoustic hallucination as well. All right, so it was either acoustic hallucination or she actually had a conversation with a dead man.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so I said, next time, here's a set of questions she should ask, not the ones she did. Okay, questions are, where are you? Okay, are you wearing clothes? How
Yo,
do you
Neil. Yo,
where
see,
do
this
you
is where
give me some data?
Neil.
Wait,
Neil.
listen to me. Hear me out. Here, listen. Don't lose these opportunities. Don't just say, "Oh, I'm fine. Take care of your brothers. I'm fine." No, it's like, are you cold? Is there a temperature? Is grandma there? By the way, if you see grandma, is she 80 or is she 30? Right? Okay. Well, if you die and go wherever you're going, are you still the age when you're so old and decrepit, or are you in your vital young self? Get some information.
Neil deGrasse.
But then
Neil.
I said, wait. Then I said, here's one. I said, I'm going to write down on a piece of paper a very easy phrase that we've all heard of, like roses are red or something. But I'm not going to tell you what it is. I'm going to fold it up, and you carry this in your pocket. Okay? The next time, so she doesn't know what's written on it. The next time you are facing a dead body you're having a conversation with, pull out this piece of paper, open it, face it to them and not to you, and see if they can read it. If they read it back to you and you didn't know what was on it, we got some data here. We got some explaining to do. So let's go for it. So anyhow, that's how I approach these things. Rather than, oh, it's mystery. No, get better data, and then we can have a conversation.
Yeah, Neil, you're the greatest, yo. This is where, but see, this is where art and science collide a little bit. Like, because I'm listening to what you're saying, and I think, boy, the arrogance of humans to think that however they learned to go about conversation would dictate a conversation when you're in the presence of a spiritual being. See, that didn't make any sense to me. Like, you could sit there and ask, if we're pretending what the young lady was saying was true, right? Then you could sit there and ask any question in the universe. You're going to get what the spirit is allowing you to get because you're beneath it. You're insignificant. Your little human shit that you learned on Earth means nothing in this instance.
Well, you're assuming that the spirit is a higher a cognitive entity rather than just a, people talk about ghosts. There's no reason to think ghosts have deep knowledge of physics.
Neil, what I'm saying isn't based on knowledge of the unknown. It's based on my knowledge of humans.
Okay. Got it. And I'm saying if you encounter a spirit entity and it has access to places beyond this realm, get better data. That's all I'm saying. That's what I told her.
So you are indeed, it sounds like, dismissive of the notion, at least.
No, I want.
Well, because what better data would there be? How do you do that?
I just said.
Ask the questions
that give information that can tell you about that environment.
But now, in the event you couldn't get it through question,
well, then that's a problem. If you can't actually perform these experiments, then it's not as useful. It's just you telling us what you experienced. Mm-hmm. And I can't help you there. It's just your own.
Let me ask you this. Now, I won't ask you about these haunted house stories that I've heard throughout the years that I actually believe. But
wait, and if you got ghosts in the house, how come they can go through walls but they don't fall into the basement? Like, how come?
Yo, the ghosts are gonna kick your ass, yo.
I'm just saying, what?
When they get a hold of you, Neil.
No, I'm not being. I'm trying to just. I'm curious.
Neil, you never speak to a deceased loved one of yours?
I like
even
ghosts.
Though they're not present?
I like ghosts. And there's been about 100 billion people ever born. So that means we have like 100 billion ghosts running around. That's a pretty crowded world,
You're
actually.
the one that, no. See, whoa, Neil, you will not do that. On our last call, you're the one that told me how giant the universe is.
Oh, yeah. So,
So
okay.
then
So
why
ghosts
is
fill out the
that
rest of.
crowded world?
Okay. If then plenty of room for ghosts to float out there in space. But anytime ghosts are hanging out in the movies, they're like with you. You know, they're in your room or something. You know, they don't descend from the rest of the universe. They're hanging out on Earth. The Ghostbusters, they're all Earth-based ghosts.
Oh man, I can't believe you don't think that the ghosts are protecting us here, but that's fine.
Protecting us from what? And by the way, just because you're an artist, are you saying there are no atheist artists? Why must a
There are
conversation about a
atheist
soul
artists.
have to
There are
be
definitely atheist artists.
right? So
I
then why?
argue with them too, though.
And by the way, I didn't finish talking about a soul. So the soul, this spirit entity. I have other questions about it. For example, so my father lost him about 4 years ago. He was 89. Good old age for him. He didn't think he'd live that long. And he had a series of mini strokes. Okay. Everything we know about the brain is that it is the entirety of your identity. Unless you're religious and you add a soul element to it. Okay. But speaking biophysiologically, your brain is who you are, and it's electrochemicals and nothing more. Okay. So watch what happens. So he had a series of mini strokes until he just didn't wake up again. All right. With each mini stroke, he had less and less cognitive awareness of what was going on around him. And that's consistent with our understanding of the brain. The brain is where your thoughts are and what your understandings are and how you interact with other people. And so as each little bit, I saw the MRIs of his, whatever they do for the brain to get your brain scan, and whole sections of his brain were turning off. And it was like, whoa. And so, and to the end there where he just wasn't responding at all. And so was the soul being cut into pieces as well? Or was the soul just waiting for that last bit of no brain and then you just leave? And is the soul intact? Is the soul, why is it that everything we understand about a brain follows the evidence of someone who dies in this way? All right. Why isn't the soul just still there? But maybe I shouldn't even be asking those questions, because to believe in the soul is a very deep religious thing that people have. And I'm not going to stop anybody. We live in a country, we have free expression of religion. I will not stand in the way. What I will say is, if you want to bring it into the science classroom, that's just not where it goes. You don't see scientists picketing churches who say, Sunday schools, hey, you better put some Newton physics in that. Nobody's doing that. It's a special place on the weekends.
Well, I totally understand that part. There's only one problem.
What?
I don't correlate soul with religion at all, Neil.
Oh, okay. All right. That's what most people would, but you're different. That's fine.
I'm not very religious at all. I don't dance in that world.
Okay. All right. But I use soul as metaphor. Your soul of your curiosity. That's a phrase I've used many times. It's that deep inner part of you that is that manifests in important ways when you're making important decisions.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
Here's a silly question for you. What do you think about the retrograders?
About the
people that believe in the retrogrades and how the universe had a planet's dancing effect human action down here.
So you call them the retrograders. I like that. That's interesting. Okay, so consider the following. Okay, I'm amazed that the word retrograde exists at all. Okay, because I'll tell you why. If Earth were the actual center of all motion, if that were the case, and you looked up at the night sky and day by day you saw these dots of light move across the sky day to day, they don't move so fast, you have to wait day to day, and you see them move against the background stars, and then you're watching it, and then you see it slow down and then stop and then reverse, slow down, stop, and then go forward again.
Okay.
You say, So you say, oh my gosh, planet Mercury is moving backwards. This must be significant. It's going backwards. Let's get a name for it. Let's call it retrograde. Oh my gosh, this must mean something. Okay. So, all right, then we learn that Earth is not the center of all motion. The sun is in the center of the star system, that's the quote solar system, and Mercury just is always going in a circle around the sun. It doesn't slow down, stop, and go backwards. It's just always going in the same direction. But our sight line to it can make it look like it's moving backwards, but it's not. Any more than you could be in a train looking out the window to an adjacent train on the adjacent tracks, and then it looks like it's moving backwards, but really you're moving forwards. You ever see that? It's true in buses too. Okay. Yeah. All right. Do you have a special word to describe the train that looks like it's going backwards but isn't? No, you're just moving forwards. Okay. All right. You don't need a special word for something that's not actually happening. Wow. So nothing actually moves backwards. So now we have an entire subculture today that wants to give meaning to this thing that happens in the sky, which if we were in the center of the known universe would be freaking amazing and maybe even worrisome, but we're not. And it's just by the way, we have a lot of vocabulary left over from that day. Okay. We still say the sun rises and sets. We don't adjust our language. I don't say to you, what time does Earth rotate such that the sun appears above our eastern horizon? No, I ask, what time does sunrise? Yeah. Right? Sunrise is a geocentric vocabulary word that we have retained from those days. And it's quaint and it's romantic. I don't have a problem with it. but we're not creating cults about the sun actually rising in the sky, moving around Earth. But somehow we have, what do you call them? The retrograders, who want to give meaning to something that's not actually happening. And for me, that's evidence of two things. We live in a free society where you can believe what you want. And we have a failure of the educational system right alongside it.
Wow, Neil. You're crushing.
No, what do you want?
You're crushing.
You invite me
tonight,
on,
buddy. You're on a roll.
you invite.
You're getting ghosts out of here. Romance. What's next? Oh, all right. So listen to this. Oh, I've got news to break to the Instagram baddies now. Oh my God. So listen to this. All right. So what do you say to the horoscope people? Here's another silly question.
Yeah. So to the horoscope people.
The horoscope people, the numerology people.
Yeah, I got it. I know what you're talking about.
Okay.
What, you think I don't know what you're talking about?
No, I know you know, Neil.
Explain to me who the horoscope people are.
I'm sorry.
Okay. So the horoscope community is completely related to what I just described with the retrograde, because it arose from an era where everyone thought that Earth was in the center of the known universe and everything moved around us. So you'd see, it wasn't we moving around the sun, it was the sun moving around us. If the sun is moving around us, it'll show up in front of different constellations. You can triangulate on where the sun is, even in the daytime sky, but you look at constellations right after sunset and right before sunrise, and you know what constellations the sun is in front of. So it moves throughout the year. And people said there were 12 constellations that it moves through. And they're actually 13, but let's hold that aside for a moment. So there's Ophiuchus. The sun goes through. I'm sorry. If you look in the horoscope charts, where's Ophiuchus? No, it doesn't work after you need the 12. Okay. So
in a second, I'm going to start asking about your first dates with women before you were married.
No, okay. Wait. So it turns out, after the sun moves through Scorpius, which is one of the zodiacal constellations, it then enters Ophiuchus. And it spends more time moving through Ophiuchus than it ever spent in Scorpius. So most people who think they're Scorpions are actually Ophiuchans. Plus, since all this got laid out 2,000 years ago, the Earth, which is tipped on its axis, actually wobbles. And, like a top wobbles when it slows down.
Mm-hmm.
So that wobbling, we're about a 1/12 of the way through a complete wobble. The effect of that is all constellations have shifted in the sky relative to what was laid out 2,000 years ago. So what that means is, if you thought you were a Scorpion, you're probably an Ophiuchi, and all Scorpions and Ophiuchins are currently Librans. Okay? So just an example of just what's going on, because people want to anchor themselves to a pre-scientific era where everyone thought the whole universe revolved around us. The hubris of that, by the way, just think. Oh, Mars cares about you. All right? That's what kind of ego does that require? Just think that through. The whole universe somehow knows when you were born and cares about that. I again, I don't. I'll talk to you about it if you ask me, but I don't jump in people's face. I try not to, at least. So I've done this experiment. All right, I have a room of 1,000 people. You can do it with any number of people, but the bigger the better. Mm-hmm. I pull a horoscope out of a widely read horoscope magazine. All right, and this is what I did when people still read magazines. I pull it out and I read it to the audience. And I said, who thinks this is their horoscope? 2/3 of the hands got raised. Mm-hmm. That should tell you something. I picked one at random, and 2/3 of a huge room of people think it's their horoscope, when it's going to be on average 1/12 of who's out there, right? Okay. So that tells you how broadly these things are written. A brilliantly written horoscope will apply to you no matter when you were born, as is evidenced by this. And then I went to the remaining third of the room and I said, of you, who are sure it's not their horoscope? And then I told them what it is. And in every case, there's maybe a fifth or sixth that of those who are sure it's not theirs is theirs. And so if you reverse the question, rather than go to the horoscope you know is written for you, just read a horoscope and you tell me if it's written for you. Yeah. That's like the people say, oh, I've had horoscope people say, oh, what's your sign? They come up to me and I said, you should be able to figure it out. Right? Why do you have to ask me? If this all works, you don't need to ask me.
Because
I know you're Gemini.
Know you, Neil. They don't know your behaviors and
what? They know me. I'm not hidden, right? And so they say Gemini. I said this actually happened. Okay. And then I thought did I tell this story last time? I taught a class at the planetarium, an evening class, just on the evolution of stars and this sort of thing. And one woman was in there who cast horoscopes. And so to her credit, she's trying to learn some astrophysics, but she's trying to apply it to her trade. Again, I don't have a problem with that. But afterwards, she asked me my sign, and I said, why don't you tell me? And she said, it's Gemini. I said, no. A Leo? No. And then we went, Capricorn? No. And she went through like 9 signs. 9. All right? And all was a no. The 10th one, she gets it. And I say, yeah, you're right. She said, I knew it. It's like, no, you didn't. You just went 0 for 9. Okay? So I don't know if
Neil.
Yeah, what?
I hate to break it to you.
What?
There is some truth to Scorpios, or as you call them. What's your new word for the Scorpios?
Ophiuchins. I'm just telling you like it is. Yeah,
there's some truth to Ophiuchins being really good in bed.
Okay.
There's truth to that. I don't know how to explain it to Mr. Science himself. But there's truth. Hey, there is some truth to Libras being a vibe. They're vibey at first.
Okay.
I can't explain this stuff to you, Neil. You have to either believe it or not.
Well, so here's the thing. There seems to be an urge that is persistent across space and through time, where people need and want and need to believe something where science has yet to tread. Yes. Or even if it has tread, they want to believe, and I don't fully understand it. I see it and I recognize it, but I don't fully understand it, because as a scientist, I confront things I don't understand all the time. That's the whole point of being a scientist. Take me to where we don't understand stuff, and then I'm going to work on it. And if every time I hit something I didn't understand, I have to believe something that it is, then what? Then what of curiosity?
Yeah. Then
what of wonder? And because it is curiosity and wonder, as we said in Cosmos, the twin engines of exploration and discovery. And you have to be, the poet Rainer Maria Rilke has one of the poems that ends, "You must learn to love the questions themselves," because therein is the attraction to the discovery that you may or may not make. But if you're going to sit there and say, this is what happened to me today because Mercury was in retrograde, well, then that's your explanation. There it is. There's no, you're done.
The work is done. Yeah.
You're done. And do we really forget Shakespeare that quickly from Julius Caesar? It is the fault, dear Brutus, lies not in the stars, but in ourselves. Oh, did somehow people not, did that not resonate with people?
See, so you can get romantic and start quoting Shakespeare to drop. You're like, you are a funny guy, but that's manipulation, kind of. But okay.
So I'm just saying, what I find is people try to offload accountability for the good and the bad things that might happen in their lives, and I don't ever want to do that, because if something bad happens, I want to say, well, what did I do that led to that? If something good happens, I say, what did I do? I want to do more of that. If it's something that was good, if something good happened because it happened under a charitable star, well, then you had nothing to do with it. So you then become a victim. You're this pinball being played by the flippers of the universe. If you believe that. Then I don't know where that takes you.
Do you think that your wealth of knowledge makes it difficult for you to empathize with humans?
No, I think it makes it easier. So it's easier to empathize, but I'm less forgiving of the educational system that leads to huge communities that are just off the rails. People who are sure for themselves that the earth is flat, or that getting COVID to prevent themselves from getting COVID is a better solution than getting a vaccine to prevent themselves from getting COVID. There's a disconnect. And by the way, let me pull some of this back on my own shoulders. I'm an educator and I'm a scientist, and we have failed in some big way in the school system. If people can come out of the school system, graduate high school, graduate college, and start Facebook groups declaring that Earth is flat, I take responsibility for that, because these are full-grown adults. Something happened there. There's some link in a chain of learning that was broken or was never there. And I want to appeal to my fellow educators and scientists to go back to the curricula and explore where we have gone astray. Because if there's no faster way to unravel and inform democracy than to have people think things are true that are not, or think things that are not true that are. And science is exquisitely conceived to sift through that and to establish what is objectively true in the world. And that's what you want to base important decisions on, especially as they affect all of us. So I'm going to share some of that burden, some of that blame, just as an educator. We're not doing it right, if that's the end product.
You're the man, Neil. You are. You,
Right, I'm just
you
telling
never
you.
you ever just get high? No.
No, I was never a fan of altering my state of awareness of the world. You know, it takes a trifling introduction of chemicals into the brain to totally mess with
Oh,
your sense of reality,
you're
right?
getting somewhere now, Neil.
No, what is right?
Oh,
No, think
scary,
about it.
scary,
Think.
Neil. Are you
Listen,
are you
listen.
hiding? Are you subconsciously hiding things internally about yourself and your upbringing?
What I'm saying is, the brain barely works at all.
Really?
As a tool
Oh,
to decode objective reality.
mm-hmm.
The brain barely works. Okay? Just ask any psychologist with experiments they've done with eyewitness testimony. If you stage something at the front of the class and nobody knew it was going to happen, and then have everybody write about what they saw, the divergence of people's accounts. I saw it. I'm an eyewitness.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me. Was a human brain involved in this? And I'm done with you.
We saw that with the dress a few years ago.
Yeah, exactly. It's the blue dress, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Or whatever. Okay. So, by the way, in my field, we don't use words to describe colors of things. Well, we do, but only after we've specifically measured them quantitatively. And the internet has quantitative measures of colors. So we've solved that problem, even if the public has not, right? So I can tell you the color of that dress with what wavelengths of light it emits, or what combination of wavelengths of light. And I share that with my colleagues, and we're done. Well, it doesn't have to filter through our brain, or whether we had coffee that morning, or whether if you're a guy and you happen to be colorblind, because colorblind primarily affects guys. There's all ways you will misinterpret information in front of you. And that's a fully working, awake brain. And so to say, hey, let's add chemicals and stir. Okay? I'm just not gonna, I'm sorry. I care about reality. And that's anyhow.
Neil, you are awesome. All right. Here's something we can argue about. Since you've already killed ghosts and a small part of my childhood with the horoscope and all of this other stuff.
Did I kill ghosts? I like ghosts. I just don't know why they don't fall into the basement. That's all.
You kind of got rid of ghosts a little bit, and I do believe that they're going to come knocking at your door to talk about it. But Kenny G. Are you familiar with Kenny G?
The clarinetist?
Yes.
Yes. Oh, is it alto sax or clarinet?
He plays both, but I guess he's more popular for the saxophone.
Yeah, I own one of his albums, which is only one though. It's jazz standards.
I'm watching this doc about Kenny G, and I've been conflicted about it all day. So while you're here killing off things, I figured I'd ask you about it.
Okay. Okay.
The doc says that Kenny G is the highest selling instrumentalist of all time. And well, yeah, that's true if you throw in your career and Clive Davis finding you and putting that energy and effort behind you, and it goes through his whole story. But it really focuses on his total disregard of jazz and anyone who participated in jazz. And I guess I wouldn't have known that growing up about Kenny G. And while they highlight his success, they then beg the question, is this jazz music at all? Then he goes into how he birthed a sound, which is smooth jazz. We're all familiar with that. And then they go on to explain the marketing plan behind smooth jazz and all the research and analytics in the 80s that went into this. And then they're just highlighting all the records that he sold. And then they get to the end where he did a Coltrane cover. I want to say, was it Coltrane? He did a cover. I don't remember right now. And the jazz enthusiasts really slammed him. They went crazy on him because whoever he covered was sacred and you made it all whack and off note. It's the same way I guess we dealt with our introduction to auto-tune, kind of, or maybe mumble rap, if I'm to make a parallel. But do you think that Kenny G's music is jazz? That's my first question.
All right, so I have an unorthodox answer for you, which is the centerpiece of an entire chapter that I just finished for my next book, which is not going to come out for another year. Maybe we can reconnect when that book comes out. But
I would love that.
But it's a chapter on gender and race, but seen from a cosmic perspective. And you might ask, well, what the hell does that mean? Well, what happens is people on Earth are in many ways warring factions, especially in modern times. If you don't agree with me, then you're my enemy. Not, oh, you don't agree, let's talk about it and then have a beer, right? So something happened over the recent decades where having a beer after you argue became, I will now cancel you because we don't agree. And the internet is a big force in breeding that level of incivility. But what I comment on is that in this chapter, especially with regard to gender, and gender expression in particular, is for whatever reason, evolutionarily, our brains want to categorize things.
Yes.
The fewer the categories, the better. Are you with me or are you against me? Well, maybe I'm half and half. No. You're with me or you're against me. All right. Are you a boy or are you a girl? Which is it? I have to know. Well, maybe there's a continuum of gender expression. No, you have to be one or the other, right? So look at the force operating on human conduct by people, especially in power, who want to force people into a category. Are you black or are you white? Well, maybe you're a mixture, like our recent president, okay? President Obama. Because he was the first black president. He was exactly half white, but we call him the first black president because you're either black or you're white. You're not both, okay? So the denial of the continuum of how we actually express ourselves is a source of unending conflict in this world. And just to show you, we even categorize things that have no business being categorized, like hurricanes. Okay, we have 5 levels of hurricane. 5 levels of hurricane, right? Well, just hear me out. Hear me out. Okay.
No, you're cooking.
This is a continuum of wind speeds. Okay. There's no break between category 3 and category 4. It's 1 mile an hour different. All right. Yet you can go from low category 3 to high category 3, and it's just category 3 hurricane. The moment it goes that 1 mile an hour over, and it's breaking news. Hurricane Hilda is now category 4, breaking news. It's a continuum, dude. All right. So we are so hell-bent on categorizing things that in my judgment, is unhealthy for a vibrant civilization that would celebrate the actual range of things people are. So you ask me, is it jazz? And I'm telling you, I don't give a rat's ass. It is what it is. And people liked it and they bought it. Get over it. Okay? Just because you don't have a category for it doesn't mean he can't or shouldn't make music. All right? Yeah. And by the way, you're only angry that he covered Coltrane because he then outsold Coltrane by doing that song. If he covered him and didn't outsell him, no one would care about him. So it only these people who culturally appropriate, okay, they get noticed only when they start making more money. And so why not find out what are they doing to make that money? Okay, why? I'll do that. If you care about the money, then you do the same thing. If you don't care about the money and you care about the art, why do you care about them at all? The artist's followers will follow you, not them. If they have pop appeal. Any true artist, as far as I can tell, any fine artist is not seeking pop appeal. They care that the critics know what they're doing and how and why they do it. And so to say what categories it is, I don't care. It is what it is, and maybe it's its own category.
Well, that's what he said.
So fucking what? Forgive my language. I'm sorry.
No, please, it's fine. That is exactly what he said up there. First of all, Neil, like, if we'd listened to you, I don't know if podcasting would exist. I need some of this division so I can talk about this. Like, you're trying to put me out of business.
You want the argument. Okay.
We have to suppress this. But no, listen, it's who I am. I'm going to find an argument. Now, what you're saying is cool until we get to the opportunities that the art allows. Because who cares about why the artist does the art if you can't feed your family and participate in the actual market of your art, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So the purpose of bringing up, well, yeah, you would be pretty pissed off if you did a song and all the purists said it was the best song ever, and then you watch the white guy come along and do the same song and get granted every opportunity in the universe. And you'd probably be pretty pissed off if you saw that happen over and over and over again for decades and decades.
Well, of course,
in
going
every
back
different
to
genre.
Oh,
So
it goes way back.
Kenny G
to the 30s and 40s and 50s. So there's some ugly history there.
No. Yeah. So I don't want to. While you're right in theory, when you bring it back to Earth and humans and all the bullshit that we allow here for division, back to your point. Yeah, I could see how that becomes a sticky subject. I see why Black people view Elvis a certain way. I do. I understand that. I don't think it's hate when we look at him with all of his success and records sold.
So let's assume times are better now than in the times of Elvis.
Which would be a poor assumption, and you guys don't assume in science, but I'm down to do it here.
Well, I think I have evidence for why it's better.
Oh, okay. Give it to me.
And I also talk about this in that very same chapter. You ready? Okay. Oh, let me just make one other point about gender. Mm-hmm. So in computing, we have what's called bits, and it's a 0 or a 1. You've heard of this. It's a binary thing. And so that's very easy. No one has a complaint about that. It's either the data bit is either a 0 or a 1. In quantum computing, we don't have bits, we have qubits. And in a qubit can be either a 0 or a 1 or a combination of the two in any ratio. So if we had forged society with a qubit mentality, no one would be asking, are you a boy or are you a girl? If some people express more feminine or more masculine, no matter what gender they were assigned at birth, no one would question it. They're just on a continuum, on a spectrum. And so now, here's how I know times are better today than yesterday. You ready? Okay. Okay, so let's go back to George Floyd. All right. When I grew up in New York City, when a cop killed an unarmed Black male, it might have made the local news. Now, if that happens anywhere in the country, it is national news. So that's progress. It's perverted progress. It's weird to measure progress on those units. But let me just say that right now, that the country pays attention rather than maybe the local news pays attention. When I grew up, there was 7 homicides a day, and that was crime-ridden in New York City. And on top of that, there was some dozens of people killed a year by the cops, okay, unarmed. So here's my point. Mm-hmm. So Joe, I just invented a time machine, okay? Mm-hmm. Here's a time machine. Pick a time in the past. By the way, so you're there standing next to a trans person, an indigenous person, any woman, okay, and find somebody else who's historically disenfranchised, and offer them a time machine. Say, pick a time in the past where you would love to go back to, where you were treated better than in the present. And there is no such time you can dial up. There isn't. I try. Let me not say that. I say I thought hard about it. Okay. If you're a liberated woman and you say, oh, but women are this and that and that, okay, go back to the 1960s. The Sunday paper still had the women's section. It was called that, the women's section. And what was in it? Coupons for when you go shopping for your husband and your family. Okay? That was built, it was baked in to our civilization, to our culture. And I go back any number of years, fewer cabs, yellow taxis would pick me up in the street. There is no time I'm going back to at all. And that's my evidence for you, knowing that there's no time you're going to pick and say, yeah, I'm black and I was way better treated in the 1970s than I am today. Who are you fooling? Who? And if you're trans, you really, what you really want to do is go into the future. All right. You don't want to go into the past. Well, you can go into the past if you're white male, right?
Me and you were best friends. You're so great for this argumentative gene that I have inside of me. You're awesome. Okay, where do I begin with what you just said? And you give a lot of information, so like you really got to retain this. I agree with you. Let me start there. You take anybody and ask them that, they probably want to live in today, right?
Yeah, and if you've been historically disenfranchised, the future. That's correct. Because the arc of justice, as is famously said, however it's circuitous, the overall bend is towards justice and progressive. Overall, there are fits and starts to it, yes, but overall, let's go back to the 1990s. That's not even that long ago. President Clinton says, let's have don't ask, don't tell. And that was considered progressive relative to kicking all gays out of the military.
Can I respond to some of this stuff?
Yeah, sure, go.
Because all these times that you speak of is still manufactured by man and division and
Yep.
And I know what you're saying because it's what we have been taught.
Can I add another thing?
However,
can I add one more thing? And then I'll shut up. I want to add one more thing.
No, because my memory's bad.
Oh,
I don't believe that, back to your point about the educational system, I don't believe that these people have taught me everything that there is to know about my people or our history. I don't believe that. So when you ask me about a time that I would rather go back to, well, there is none if I'm totally going on this Western colonized educational system where white just ruled everything and everything black is bad luck. There's nothing even in art that depicts that today. Everything black is bad and everything white is powerful. But I don't believe that because I'm a king. So why would there ever be so many kings running around in a kingdom not have existed in the past? So, I do believe that there was a time when black kings and queens was running around living and catching a vibe. I do.
Oh, wait. I have to jump in.
Give it to me.
Sure. If you want to go back in time,
give it to me.
If you want to go back in time and become the king why
do I have to become something that I was?
Wait, hold on. I'm just saying, if you want, okay, so you can cherry pick who you would become, but that's not what my time machine takes you and just drops you in a whole other time and place. You can go to a black country that has a black king and a black queen, and that's fine, and you'll be dead at age 35 because health, our knowledge of health and human physiology did not get you to the age of 80. Okay, you would live half as long as you do today. So I'm saying, no, I don't want, and I don't want disease. I don't want to die of malaria
today. Okay,
I don't want to die of malaria. I don't want. There's a whole lot I don't want to have happen to me going into the past. And yes, if you want to find the king that you want to become, go ahead. But how about everybody else in your kingdom? How's their life? I don't know.
Well, you make me think of something that I read the other day, and I'm going off the head here, but I think that was Switzerland. And it said that there was some type of machine approved in Switzerland to aid a peaceful transition. here I go making it morbid again, but I have to ask you because you're such a brilliant man. Now, I haven't fact checked this to see if it's true, but in the event that it is, what do you think about that idea and a government actually approving such a machine?
So yeah, I don't know the details of the machine, but it reminds me much of that scene in the movie Soylent Green, where you're invited to die and you go into this room. At first you take off your clothes and you put on a white robe, and then you go into this very comfortable bed, and there's a surround imagery of peaceful nature. And I was a kid. I saw that movie when it was a first run in the theaters, and the music I heard, wow, that's really beautiful music. I would later learn that it's the first movement of Beethoven's Sixth Symphony, the Pastoral Symphony. And every time I hear that symphony, I think, if I'm on my deathbed, play this. And so if you know you're going to die, I don't see why we can't make it peaceful and beautiful. I don't see why not.
Interesting.
And the only way you'd regret that is if you didn't live the life you could have or should have. Then you'd live regrets. You'd say, gee, I wish I did that. Or, why did I deny myself that? Or why did I do that? Just make sure you do, the bucket list is fulfilled. And make sure it's a flexible bucket list that you can keep adding to. Because you don't want to finish your bucket list and say, okay, now I can die. No, put more stuff on the bucket list. Keep going.
Aging is the goal. Add to it. Here's a question I should ask the doctor and not you, but we're here now. And I'll probably make this my last one. You've been killing you, Neil. I want to.
We just ate up that whole hour. Wow. Okay. I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, you're awesome.
I talk too much. Sorry.
Yeah, no, you're great. You're great. A wealth of information every time. So listen. So I got the Johnson & Johnson shot first, and then my mom kind of talked me into mixing boosters. I was going out of town. She told me to get a booster. She was worried about me. I'm my mama's son. I went and got a booster, and I got Pfizer. The people at the desk said I could mix and do whatever I want to. And they said I can get a booster whenever I feel like it. Should I feel funny about mixing boosters or getting a booster whenever I feel like it?
I don't know. I don't carry that level of medical expertise. But on my podcast, Star Talk, we interviewed a classmate of mine from high school. In fact, he was my valedictorian, who went on to be the founder of Regeneron. And so now he's a billionaire. But you can, in that pocket, we should be posting that any minute now. But in there's a very clear and clean discussion of what goes on when you get injected with either the antibodies, which is where if your body is not itself making antibodies, here are some helpful antibodies, okay? And then you're loaded. And these are the antibodies that you would otherwise make had you gotten the vaccine, but not everyone has equal production levels of antibodies upon getting a vaccine. So I don't know the details of mixing one vaccine with another, but I do know that the boosters are the same as what you got the first time. There's just more. But if it mutates, you need a different booster, right? You need a different serum if it mutates and becomes resistant to the one you originally got the shot for. So it's a highly educational podcast. It's with the head of Regeneron, and he's my friend. We went in high school together. It's the Bronx High School of Science, by the way. I was born in the Bronx, and that school has 8 Nobel laureates among its graduates, which is kind of cool.
Earlier when you said dude was a billionaire, I was wondering how many other billionaires were there.
Well, no, I mean, we don't think he doesn't care much about the money. That came with the fact that he invented stuff for biomedical purposes. He invented a strain of mice that has the exact immune system that humans do, so that you can test things on the mouse without testing them on humans. It was brilliant. The guys,
What are you guys doing in that science lab, man?
Well, we're trying to help humanity, all right? And then you have humanity saying, we don't like science. Science is bad. Science is this. Okay. Help you die like a medieval peasant.
What does Peter think
spite
about
of modern medicine?
What does Peter think about your friend's experiment? Oh, my God. But no, that's awesome. That's awesome. How's the family?
I'm good. Thanks for asking. Yeah, we good. We good, and we're obeying medical professionals, so we've been COVID free the whole time.
Thank God.
And you know, I'm still wearing a mask till all this clears out. But anyhow, there it is.
Good. I'm glad. My family as well also.
Yeah. All right.
Neil, always a blast speaking to you, man. Can we talk again just in the future?
Okay.
Please.
And can I tell you the title of this book? Just because it's not even out. It's not out for another year. But
that's why I didn't ask you about it, because I know
no, just for context.
that last time. But go ahead, please.
It's called Starry Messenger: Cosmic Perspectives on Civilization. That's what it is.
Awesome.
And I'm going in there and I talk about risk and reward and life and death and carnivores and vegetarians. There are a lot of these places where people have been warring factions over topics, and I just say, chill. Here's another way to look at it, and then many of your arguments evaporate because there's another way to look at it, and it's a way that comes from seeing things from above, a cosmic perspective on life, the universe, and everything.
Well, it sounds super interesting. I can't wait to read it.
No, but it's not out yet, so don't worry about it.
I know. We got a year.
No, yeah, don't even think about it. Just sorry I even mentioned it. Don't.
Well, we'll talk before it drops again, definitely.
All right.
Thank you so much.
I'm glad this worked out. You got a good gig here with your Facebook thing. So keep that going.
It's pretty cool. And thank you for being on time and punctual. You're the greatest, man.
All right. We good.
Take care, man.
All right, bye.